Let's see. D&D number 13, For Unto Us, in Jesus' name, chapter 23. Keegan smiled at Lily. Well, it was a joint effort. The Kinos were very much involved in this. Ricky and I had a long talk after he took you on your little walk a few weeks ago. He let me know about your interest in this piece of property. He felt like he was supposed to do something to make this dream happen for you. So he and his wife discussed it and contacted us. Your mom and I know you've worked so hard in school. You worked so hard at the inn, and we'd all like to help make your dream come true. And honestly, Ricky said with a smile, I did have an ulterior motive. I wanted to have a good place to have some good, clean, nutritious food when I'm in town without having to crash the inn every day. Though don't get me wrong, John, I still intend to come see you guys as much as possible. I'm not worried a bit, John replied. Rose spoke up. Okay, so we all realize, Lily, that you just received a huge gift for your birthday. We were told that they intended to give you the house and we were told that they intended to give you the house, and we were also told that you had extensive knowledge of the Sawyer house. Can you give us a nutshell version? Rose asked. Lily nodded. Well, Knox Sawyer grew up in a small farm in Pine County. He went away to school, came back, and married his childhood sweetheart, Bertie, whose name may have been Bernice. He built that house for Bertie in 1827, the same year the town of Pine Forest was established, and he was the first mayor, and they had 6 sons and 5 daughters. They were very happy. I believe from the activities they were involved in that they were fairly wealthy, but when the baby was only 1 and the middle daughter was 7, they contracted yellow fever and they both died, and their mom simply could not handle the death of her babies, and she wasted away and died a year later. And Knox was inconsolable. The newspaper said he shut himself away. It also said he drank a lot. It was left to his older daughters to raise the other children. However, one of the older girls fell in love with a local boy and wanted to leave her father's house and marry her love, but Knox wouldn't allow it. She was so distraught over the loss of her true love that she ended up taking her own life. Oh, wow, Gabe said softly. This is a really sad story. Lily nodded. It is. It breaks me up, and it gets worse, because not long after that, a yellow fever epidemic swept through, and 4 more children died, leaving Knox with only his 4 eldest sons. Shortly thereafter, Knox died too, and they say he died of a broken heart. And then his boys sold the home and left town and never came back. And since then, the house has been vacant, off and on, over the years, though I know it's been a general store and a library. She sighed. Lily, that is such a sad story, Heather said. Why would you even want to own that property? She shrugged. I don't know. I think maybe it's because I feel this pull, this need, I guess, to make it a happy place again. I've always been drawn to it. When all the kids in town said it was haunted, I just felt like it needed some love. I told Mr. Kino that I'd love to own it one day and make it a restaurant, Lily's place, and she stopped. Oh, you all know that, don't you? That's why all of your gifts were about Lily's place and restaurant stuff. They all chuckled. I'm glad you figured that out, Gabe said dryly. So, Nolan, Heather began, since we always say there's no such things as coincidences, maybe you having the same last name may not be just a strange coincidence. You wouldn't happen to have any relatives who grew up in Pine Forest, do you? He shook his head. Well, not that I know of. Still, I may do a little asking. They all nodded thoughtfully at that, and Lily smiled. I can't thank you enough, Mom, Dad. I'm afraid to know how much you spent on the purchase of this property, but whatever it is, I'm so grateful. I feel such a rush, such a warmth of feeling. I can't even describe it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Keegan nodded. Well, like I said, it was a joint gift. The Kinos wanted to be a part of it. Lily looked at Gabe's phone. Thank you so much, Mr. and Mrs. Kino. You're so welcome, Bree said. But there's more. It's going to need some major renovations, and starting up a restaurant is not an easy task. However, Ricky has invested in and been a part of dozens of restaurants here in our area. And every single one of them is highly successful. So he would like to lend his expertise to you, as well as the startup capital. He will be happy to discuss all of the business with you and your father, and then you can make the decisions on how you want to proceed. I am overwhelmed. Well, don't be, Ricky said. We got this. Easy peasy. And so, Keegan interrupted, we still have another gift to give out to our Daisy. And let me just say up front that the Kinos also wanted to be a part of this gift. He took the envelope from Gabe and handed it to Daisy. She opened it and frowned, almost exactly as Lily had done, and she looked up. I don't understand. It's a deed to a property. They nodded. That deed is to the property that is right next to the Sawyer house, which from here on out will be known as Lily's place. So I'll let Ricky explain this line of thinking because it was totally his idea. Daisy nodded and looked up at Gabe's phone. Ricky Kino smiled. Daisy, we were in a dilemma. We very much wanted to give Lily the gift of the house to help her progress in life, but we couldn't do that and not give you something as significant. Bree kept talking about the fact that she wished there were two houses side by side to purchase so that you each could have your own thing. And then we discovered that the little piece of land there next to Lily's place could certainly hold a twin house. Of course, it probably wouldn't be a home for you, but a place of business. We did some digging on you and found out you love carpentry, you love gardening, you're a genius on computers and web developing. You're gifted with many interests and talents. So we thought we would build you a place next to Lily's place, and you can be in on the planning, on the building, and mostly on what you want to do. Well, wow, this is exciting, Daisy said, but my mind is blank. I don't really know what to do. Ricky smiled, and that's okay. There's no rush. You might want to test your design skills. You might want to try your carpentry skills. I understand your father built the house you're living in. He could teach you. You might want to try gardening or landscaping. You might want to run a computer business right there. You might want to simply live there. You might want to flip it and sell it. You will have a piece of property to do whatever you please. But first, you have to look at house designs or business designs and decide on the architecture, or even if you want it to be a twin of the other house. Daisy nodded thoughtfully and then smiled. This is an amazing gift. I hardly deserve such an expensive gift. What makes you unworthy? Keegan asked her the same question he'd asked Lily. Daisy shrugged. It feels like it's too much. I mean, I get that you wanted to match Lily's gift, but I'm so happy for Lily to have that amazing gift. That is a gift for me, too. You don't really have to give me anything like this. I mean, a pair of socks would be good for me. Bree smiled. Well, now, that is sweet and humble of you, and I love the way a gift for Lily makes you feel happy. But I also understand that you like design, interior design, and I do too. So use your skills and or imagination to design this property and sell it off if you feel it's too much. It's a gift. Do with it what you wish. And if you think it's too much, pay it forward. I'm excited to see what ideas you'll come up with. Think about it. Pray about it. Talk to your parents and family members, and we'll get together after the new year and make some plans. Okay? Daisy nodded. Yes, ma'am. I will. I promise. So right now, Ricky began, both properties are in your father's name. He tells me he will transfer them to your names when you are ready. And that is between him and you girls. I think they're both a little overwhelmed, Keegan said. We'll let this simmer for a bit. Ricky nodded. I think that's wise. Okay, then, so who wants to eat some birthday cake, Lizzie asked. I do, Iris said immediately. Rick, Bree, thanks so much for your help and input on this birthday project, Keegan said. No, thank you, Keeg, for allowing us to be part of it. Go have cake and eat a piece for me. And me, young Eric yelled out. Everyone laughed. New scene. It is December 20th, early Friday morning, L Street Apartments, Los Angeles, California. JoJo knocked on the apartment door and waited. He had reinforcements with him. Leaning against the upstairs railing outside of the apartment was young Eric, Logan, Jordan, Melody, and 3 guys from the USC football team, DJ, Maka, and Corey. The three only had a few hours before they had to leave for a meeting and practice, but had volunteered to help their friend and former quarterback. The task at hand was to move the Quinn sisters to a new place where their location would not be known to Scott Newman or any of his acquaintances. The door opened and Raylan smiled up at JoJo. "Hi, JoJo." She looked past him to the others. "Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to help. Please come in." They all moved through the door into the small living room of the two-bedroom apartment. "Raylan, let me introduce you to everyone." "Wait for me," Kaylee said as she moved slowly into the room. Melody tried not to gasp. Jordan's eyes opened wide. The guys sighed and shook their heads at the sight of the poor girl. Her face was black and blue, literally. Her lips and cheek were swollen and disfigured. Both eyes were black. "Hello, Kaylee," JoJo said softly. "How you feeling?" She gave what was supposed to be a smile. "I'm okay, really, thanks to you. It looks worse than it is. I have a pretty good headache that won't go away, but they gave me something for pain, but it's not helping." JoJo nodded. "I'll call my Aunt Jeffy and get her to give us some of her special meds." "They work," Melody put in. JoJo nodded at her with a smile. "Raylan and Kaylee, this is my brother Logan and his girl Melody. As you can see, she too had a bad guy pound on her the same day this happened to you." Melody smiled. "But the guy only hit me once. I'm so sorry this happened to you, but you're in good hands now." Logan smiled at the very true statement as he stepped forward and offered his hand to the sisters and greeted each one. His eyes lingered on Raylan, and now he understood why his brother's interest. It was more than him being protective of a few females. This girl was just as beautiful as his own Melody, and yet completely different in appearance. Black hair, bright green eyes, fit, trim, and a beautiful smile that radiated warmth. But she also had a toughness about her, a no-nonsense kind of attitude that Logan knew JoJo would appreciate. Jordan, too, was no-nonsense. His Melody was just plain sweet. "And this is my cousin Eric and his fiancée, Jordan," JoJo continued. Eric offered his hand to both girls, and so did Jordan. She smiled at Kaylee. "I, too, have been there, my face all beat up. It'll get better, and Dr. Kino Wallace knows her stuff. She'll fix you up." JoJo nodded at the others. "And these guys are from the team, DJ, Maka, and Corey. They volunteered to come help with the move." Raylan shook all of their hands. "Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to come help two total strangers." "Hey, no problem," Maka said. "So where do we start?" "Is there a truck?" Raylan asked. "Yes," JoJo replied. "So it looks like you still have some packing up of the small stuff. Why don't you and the girls work on that, and us guys will get the big stuff out to the truck." "Okay, I still have to pack up the kitchen, and Kaylee was going to work on the bathroom, but she wasn't feeling too well this morning." "Well, Kaylee," Melody said, "why don't you let me do the work and you just boss me around?" Kaylee nodded. "And I'll help Raylan in the kitchen," Jordan said. "Awesome. And I'll supervise," JoJo said with a grin. "DJ, Maka, you guys go ahead and get the sofa to the truck. Young Eric, Logan, you get the big chair and the tables. Corey, you come with me and let's see what the bedrooms look like." The guys immediately went to work. 30 minutes later, the last few boxes and trash bags filled with soft items like the linens and pillows and bedspreads and such were grabbed up by the guys. While the sisters and the guys left to move into the new place, Melody and Jordan remained at the apartment, cleaning the kitchen and bathroom and vacuuming and sweeping to make sure the place was left clean. The new home was a small two-bedroom house on West 35th Street. It was blue with white trim and shutters and white planter boxes out front and a cute dormer above the yellow front door. It had been provided by the Angel Network, free of charge, though Raylan had insisted that she pay rent. Angel instructed her agent to accept the pay and put it into an account for the sisters to use at a later date. The guys unloaded the truck while the Quinn sisters directed them as to where to place things. Young Eric and Logan put the beds back together for them, and the girls hung their clothes up in the closets and unpacked the bathroom and started on the kitchen. Kaylee was tired and made to sit down and rest. The guys finished up with the truck, and young Eric went to turn it in and pick up his car and would swing by to pick up the girls from the old apartment. Meanwhile, Jordan and Melody chatted as they finished up cleaning the kitchen. Jordan was working on the oven and Melody was wiping out the cabinets. So what do you think about the Quinn girls? Jordan asked. Melody smiled. I feel really bad for Kaylee. I mean, she's sad, obviously, because she's been hurt. But also, she made mention a few times of some memories with this Scott guy, like from when they first met. And I think she's sad over the loss of the relationship. Jordan nodded. Yeah, I agree. I don't know, but if some guy beats on me, I wouldn't want anything else to do with him. Melody nodded. Right? But who knows? I mean, maybe her self-esteem isn't real high. And when you don't value yourself, you end up accepting the abuse. Jordan nodded. They are interesting. I mean, the sisters being Native American and all. And, oh, my goodness, that Raylene is drop-dead gorgeous. Like something out of a magazine. Melody nodded. I agree. And I don't think we're the only ones who noticed. Are you talking about our guys or JoJo? Yes, Melody said with a giggle. Jordan smiled. I was watching JoJo, and it looks to me like he's at the very least interested. Melody nodded. Who wouldn't be? She seems intelligent. She's a physical therapist, and she's kind, and she loves her sister, and she's grateful because she must have said thank you 1,000 times. And like you said, she's drop-dead gorgeous. Jordan nodded. It's going to be interesting to sit back and watch. You know, I did the same thing when I realized Logan was interested in you. Melody smiled. Really? Sure. When I first met Logan, he was on a bad date with a girl named Angie, who only agreed to come to watch JoJo's game with him because he was related to the Kinos. It was truly sickening. And then when I realized he had his eye on you, I was hoping so much that it would be different. And look what happened. He fell in love with the sweetest, kindest, and prettiest girl, and I already love you like a sis, so it's a love made in heaven. Oh, Jordan, Melody said as her eyes teared up. Jordan rose up from the oven and hugged her. Oh, my goodness. I made you cry. Sorry, not sorry. Melody giggled, and then startled for a second when someone knocked on the door. Jordan smiled. Oops. Sounds like three's here. Are we about done? Melody nodded. Jordan went to let him in, but was surprised. The person at the door was not young Eric. He was a guy, maybe in his 30s, and he was frowning. Are you Kaylee? The man asked. Jordan scrunched up her face. No. Who are you? I'm looking for a girl named Kaylee. I need to talk to her. Well, there is no Kaylee that lives here, Jordan said, pretending to play dumb because no one was allowed to know where Kaylee moved. Are you lying to me? Look, buddy, I don't know who you think you are, but you need to back off. There is no Kaylee that lives here. He looked past her as he heard someone else talking. He frowned. The place looks empty. Very good, Jordan quipped sarcastically. So she moved, unless that's her in there. It's not. Go away, Jordan said and tried to shut the door, but he slammed it open, pushing Jordan to the floor as he did. She rose quickly, though. The guy stormed in toward Melody. Are you Kaylee? Nope, sorry, buddy, you're too late. What are you two doing in Kaylee's apartment? It should be evident, Jordan said as she came to stand between him and Melody. We're cleaning. That's what we do. We clean apartments. Now you need to get out of here. You know where she went, don't you? I have no idea what you're talking about, Jordan said. He grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her. You better tell me where she went if you don't want to get hurt. Jordan struck out quickly, her foot connecting solidly in his groin. At the same time, Melody ran forward and kicked to his kneecap, pressing it into a hyperextension, and he fell but began threatening to do all kinds of ill will to the girls. The girls themselves were very relieved when, at that moment, young Eric stepped through the door. Am I going to have to kill somebody? He asked softly. Jordan rubbed her arms where he'd grabbed her. I'm okay. But I think this guy needs to be detained and questioned. He grabbed me, he shook me, and he threatened to hurt me. And I got it on video, Melody said as she pointed to her phone sitting up on the counter. He wanted Kaylee and was demanding we tell where she went. Eric nodded. Well, as soon as you called me, Melody, I contacted Uncle Joey and cops should be here any minute. The guy rose. I'm out of here. Young Eric said softly before he knocked him down. Why do you want Kaylee, huh? How do you know her? I don't know her. I just wanted to tell her something. Tell her something for whom? He sighed. For Scott. How do you know Scott? We went to school together. He's got my back, and I got his. He asked me to speak to Cali and tell her that she'd better not testify against him. Or what? I don't know what he planned to do. He just told me to find her and let her know that she'd better not testify. That's all. He rose again. I have to leave. You can't keep me here. I'm pretty sure I can, Eric said as he knocked him down again. There's no way you're getting out of here, so just sit and relax. Listen, pretty boy, I'm not afraid of you. Well, you should be, Jordan said quickly, because some guys kidnapped him and they're all dead. Brows raised, young Eric looked into Jordan's eyes. She shrugged her apology for the lie because they weren't all dead. He sighed. A minute later, the police arrived. A new scene. It is December 20th, Friday afternoon, Hopewood Chapel, Huntington Beach, California. Reverend Ronald Clark and Breeze Adams stood outside the church staring up at the newly installed stained glass window. It was beautiful. Absolutely stunning. The colors were bright. Mary and Joseph watching over the baby Jesus in the manger, the light from the star overhead illuminating the baby's face. There was also a sheep and donkey and 2 shepherds. It was awesome, and Breeze sniffed. Ronnie looked down at her. It is moving, isn't it? She nodded and gave a small laugh at herself. It's even better than I thought it would be. I didn't realize what a difference it would make. I just love it so much. Ronnie nodded. As do I. You did a remarkable job. She sighed. Well, art has always been inside me. I love to paint, to create beauty, but doing it here in service to God, it is so rewarding. You're right. Serving God is the most rewarding thing. It fills us with so much joy and satisfaction and purpose. If only people would realize that instead of seeking after money or fame or power, they would be so much happier and so much more fulfilled. He sighed and then smiled. So, Mrs. Adams, where are your little ones today? Oh, they're visiting with my sister. One of their favorite things to do, though Ledger is not quite as happy this time because Logan and JoJo are not home right now, and he loves it when they play with him. Ledger is a toddler, correct? Well, he just turned 3 in November. Well, it's wonderful that his 2 much older cousins take time to play with him. She nodded. They're such good boys, or I guess should say young men. They're so grown up now. It's strange how fast that happened, but yes, I'm grateful that they spend time with Ledger and set such a good example for him. Ronnie nodded. Those 2 young men are very special, and I'm grateful to them, the way they stepped in immediately to give me the help I needed here. Let's be honest, Mrs. Adams, I'm 92 years old. I'm not going to be around forever, and I'm going to need someone to take over the ministry here. I'm not sure how this will work out, but I feel like if I leave it in their hands, then God's purpose for this church will be reached. Breeze sighed and nodded. It sounds like a very big undertaking for 2 boys. Do they know you're thinking along those lines? Well, I think they know somewhere deep inside their hearts. I know they didn't think they'd be strapped to this place. I know they usually go to different churches to spread their light around, so I don't expect them to be full-time ministers here. But maybe they will bring others in to serve here as well. I see. He shrugged. Or maybe they'll want to make this church their base, if only for a little while. We'll see. I trust God, and I trust them. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts with me, Reverend. Thank you for listening to this old man ramble on. I don't think you of that way. I think of you as a wise, elderly gentleman who has much to share and whom God called personally to shepherd for him. He smiled. You are very kind. Your husband must feel very blessed. I'm blessed to have my husband. He's taught me so much. He taught me about God and brought me into the fold. He's such a good man. I can see that he is. So, what do you say, Mrs. Adams? Shall we go inside and see what effect the window has on the inside of the church? Oh, yes, let's do. New scene, it's December 21st, 8 a.m., Saturday morning, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. Gabe Tanner came upstairs after his workout, grabbed his gun bag, and stopped in the den to turn on the TV for a moment. He quickly changed the channel to What's Up Hollywood. He didn't have to watch long before what he was waiting for was announced. He sat down to listen. What is up this morning, everyone, is a huge star in the making. Opening night for the resurrection of Elijah Beck has taken the number 2 spot of the biggest opening day results of all times, raking in 125 mil in its first night. The movie has been touted as a thought-provoking roller coaster ride with eye candy that won't stop. Leslie Onker of Movie Mania says, the fresh good looks of Eric Kino III will get you to the box office, but his natural acting talent will keep you there. You never want the film to end. This young man will take the world by storm. He's the perfect mixture of his parents, his father's athleticism and his mother's acting skills, and both of their good looks. This guy is headed straight to the top. Lucy Bardot is a perfect pairing for the role, who played it just right. The rest of the cast was phenomenal, and the direction perfect. The action scenes choreographed by Eric's father, Ricky Kino, is the best I've ever seen. And Melvin Lett says, I was expecting another martial arts type plot, but this film is deep. There's some bad language to give realism to the role of the bad guy, and still it was so refreshing to feel the emotional pull without graphic violence or sex. Well done. Well done indeed. The anchor smiled at the camera. All this, along with the fact that Eric Kino III just won the Kino Challenge, the youngest competitor to ever do that, and after his kidnapping just a few weeks earlier, I agree with the reviews coming back. This young man is taking the world by storm. Gabe watched another minute to make sure they weren't saying anything else, and then turned off the television. He sat there smiling for a few seconds and then felt the emotion well up. He'd done it. Taylor's brother had exceeded all expectations. He glanced at the clock. It was a little after 8. Taylor might be awake. He needed to tell her. He gave in and made the call. Good morning, Gabe, Taylor answered almost immediately. Morning, Tay. Did I wake you? Only sort of. I was just checking to see how much time I had to sleep, so I was about to get up in 30 minutes anyway. Okay, so do you want me to call you back? No, silly. I'm always happy to talk to you, so what's up? Gabe chuckled. Yes, exactly. Huh? What's up, Hollywood? I just watched their morning report. Eric's movie has just taken second place in the biggest opening day of all time. Taylor sat straight up. What? Really? I wouldn't wake you up to tease you. Yes, of course, really. It's amazing the things they're saying. I am so happy for him, for all of us. It's a win, a big-time win. Well, what did they say? Gabe went on to tell her all he'd heard. She squealed. She laughed. Oh, man, Gabe, I am so stoked. Me too. This is awesome, Tay. I can't even put it into words, especially because usually the bad guys won't let Christians get real popular without a fight. I think they did fight. They tried to take him out. They lost. Yes, and still the media could have squashed this story, Gabe said. Well, Taylor began. Sometimes when the tidal wave is just too big, they have no choice but to go with it. Tidal wave, Gabe smiled. Yep, that's what this is, a tidal wave. And so were you, Gabe. They couldn't take you out. They had to go with it. They couldn't squash your story. God is with us, Gabe, and the dark forces can't stand against us. Well, not for want of trying, Gabe answered. But let's don't get cocky. Stay always vigilant. Always. Okay, well, video call with me later. I'm heading over to shoot. Okay, well, love you, Gabe. Wait. Since I have you on the phone, will you say my morning prayer with me? Yes, of course. Who do you want to say it? You say it, she said cutely. He smiled, knelt down in the den, closed his eyes, and prayed with the girl he loved. New scene. It is still December 21st, early Saturday morning at South Kino Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Bree and Ricky rose from their morning prayer, and Ricky kissed his wife and headed to the kitchen. Bree immediately picked up her phone. She already had several messages and missed calls from her publicist and agent. She smiled. Hopefully it was because of good news about young Eric's numbers. She quickly read a few of the messages and smiled, then turned and headed to the kitchen. Ricky? Yep, he answered as he added raw milk to the blender. She smiled and held up her phone. Are you ready for this? He nodded and gave her his full attention. The resurrection of Elijah Beck has had the second largest, highest grossing opening night of all times. It's already taken in over $125 million. Ricky nodded. Okay, Good. What are they saying about Eric? She scrolled a bit. Well, one review calls him eye candy with substance. Leslie Unker says, the fresh good looks of Eric Kino III will get you to the box office, but his natural acting talent will keep you there. You never want the film to end. This young man will take the world by storm. He's the perfect mixture of his parents, his father's athleticism and his mother's acting skills, and both of their good looks. This guy is headed straight to the top. She looked up, tears in her eyes. He passed the test, Ricky. He did it. Ricky nodded. What else? Read them all to me. Bree started scrolling. Realistic and deep, Eric III is equal to the task. Eye candy that keeps on giving. Knowing that this young man is a real martial artist, proven, just as his father had to prove himself, and knowing what he faced only a month ago gives his character so much more credence. It's a win-win, and if people are like me, they are very much looking forward to what this young man does next. And, Eric Kino definitely inherited his parents' skills. And then, this young actor is hot in every way. I'll take 2. Bree stopped with a giggle, to giggle at that one, and Ricky sighed. Bree eyed her husband. Are you not happy for our son? Ricky nodded. Yes, I'm happy for him. But you know what comes next. I have to do for him what my father had to do for me. Make sure priorities don't get mixed up. Make sure he understands the weight of what's happening. He now has tons more responsibility. People will recognize him on the street. He has to learn how to play things. He already knows that, Bree argued. He's watched us over the years. He's pretty savvy. It's still going to be a big deal for a while, and we have to make sure he doesn't get caught up in trying to best himself. He has to keep doing God's will, searching for the right thing, not fame. He cannot get lost in the popularity. So you're saying you'd like us to be a little bit low-key about this? Ricky nodded. Yep. And it's a fine line. If we go too low-key, he'll think we're not interested or don't care. Too excited, and he'll want to keep doing things to please us. He has to know that this newfound fame, this ultra-popularity he's about to face is really like a giant... He stopped at the rumble of footsteps. A giant burden? Young Eric asked as he came down the stairs. They both turned to their son. Close enough, Ricky mumbled. Young Eric grinned. What were you going to say? I was going to say a giant responsibility. Young Eric nodded. Okay. Yes, it is. Dad, don't think I haven't thought about all of this beforehand. What if I make a huge splash? What if I fail miserably? What is my focus? How do I respond? Ricky nodded. And what did you come up with? Well, first and foremost, to keep things in perspective. If I do well, then hit my knees in gratitude first, which I just did. Then hit my knees again to ask God how I can use this to serve him. You're right, Dad. It is a huge responsibility, and the world is watching me. And I can take a page from your book and Mom's book, and I got the message this morning as I prayed to also consider Gabe. He was thrown into the limelight. He has handled it humbly, seriously taking what has happened to him and run with it to help so many. So I will ask God to show me the path he wants me to take. Bree sniffed. What if he wants you to do another movie? If it meets with his approval, I will. If it interferes with my upcoming plans, I won't. What if someone says they want you for this really big movie deal, but you have to do it on their schedule? Ricky asked. Well, if I approve of the movie and their schedule and mine coincide, okay. But I'm getting married this spring, and my focus for a while will be on my fiancé, and then my new bride and my new life. Ricky nodded. Well, son, I guess I underestimated you. I'm not insulted. As my father, you had to cover all the bases. And what I think and how I feel is what you taught me already anyway. You and Mom have done a good job. You've been awesome parents. I hope I can make you proud of me. We are proud of you, Eric, Bree said quickly. But honestly, Dad, Mom, I feel kind of happy. I feel pleased that I was able to do something halfway decent since I dropped out of school and probably disappointed the heck out of you. I mean, numbers and physics are not the only things I'm good at. And this film I made, it has some good lessons and an inspirational vibration to it, and it plants seeds, don't you think? And yeah, I'm feeling good about that and about somehow we were able to get these good reviews with normally Christians get buried in Hollywood, right? Ricky nodded. Yes, that's right. They really had no other choice. You were too popular. They couldn't go against the momentum. Right, it was a tidal wave, and they had no choice but to go with it, Taylor said as she came downstairs. She smiled. That's what Gabe said and I just talked about. That's what Gabe and I just talked about. Gabe has a way with words, young Eric said. Taylor frowned. I was the one who said that. They all chuckled. Sorry, Tay, young Eric said. It just sounds like something Gabe would say. I guess you two are more alike than we think. Taylor smiled because she liked the sound of that. It's okay. I'm not insulted. Ricky lifted his phone. Looks like you have some company, he said to young Eric. Jordan? Nope. Go open the door. Young Eric went to the front door and watched as JoJo drove up in his pickup, and right behind him Logan in his own car, and they stopped and jumped from their vehicles with giant smiles on their faces. You did it, Eric, JoJo said. Eric smiled and stood firm as his brothers rushed him and hugged him fiercely, almost knocking him down. They laughed together as JoJo and Logan patted his head and his back and smacked his cheek and then hugged him again. So, Dad and I were about to head to the beach. You want to join us? That's what we're dressed for, JoJo said. Hey, I appreciate your effort to come all the way down here just to congratulate me. Well, we're not here for that as much as to support you. We understand what this means, Eric, so we want to help you ground. We'll do our little prayer circle and meditation after a workout and help you get some clarity. Eric's eyes moistened. He shook his head. I don't deserve you guys. Whatever, bro. Come on. We have a choir rehearsal in a few hours, Logan said. Let's do this. Young Eric began. I bet Melody is going to be here. Is going to be there. Logan grinned, and Jordan too, so there's that. They went into the house, greeted their Uncle Ricky and Taylor, but Bree was upstairs with Amari and Brittany. They headed down to the beach and almost regretted it. It seemed as if Ricky's idea of celebration was to give them one of the hardest workouts they'd ever had. All three were close to failure and dropped to their knees in the sand, and Ricky nodded. That ought to do it. We're done. Who wants to pray? You pray, Dad. Ricky gave an eloquent and heartfelt prayer of gratitude and asked for directions for his family. And when he finished, he and Taylor walked back up to the house, while young Eric, JoJo, and Logan stayed on the beach. The three young men sat in a lotus position in a circle on the sand and talked for a while. And when Bree and Ricky looked back out to check on them, they were kneeling in the sand, and each had his hand on the other's shoulder. And Bree smiled at Ricky as she pulled out her phone and took a picture. That is a beautiful thing. Ricky nodded. Indeed it is. And that is the end of chapter 23.